Starting with fact number 10, the coldest villages. Because of Russia's harsh winter conditions, I mean like really harsh, it's no surprise that the country is home to the world's coldest village. Winter temperatures in Oymyakon, Russia average 58 degrees Fahrenheit. Oymyakon's lowest recorded temperature is negative 96 degrees Fahrenheit. Living in these extreme temperatures has several drawbacks. Of course, if someone attempts to wear glasses, for instance, outside, the glasses will definitely freeze on their face. So I would have a hard time in that village. Cars must also be kept in heated garages or they are not going to start at all. Moving on to fact number 9, 20% of the world's trees. Yep, it's true. If you enjoy nature, then you're definitely going to enjoy and love this fact about Russia. Russia is home to roughly 20% of the world's trees. This amounts to approximately 604 billion trees. Many of the trees are in far-flung parts of Siberia though, and they are part of remote untouched forests that are too cold for the general public to even visit. The endangered Siberian tigers are also said to be living in these cold forests. So maybe it's a good thing that they live so far out because they are endangered. But now, yeah, they can't be touched. No one's gonna really venture into those cold forests. Next up at number 8, let's talk about folk dancing. Other than nature, Russia is rich in culture as well. Folk dancing is an integral part of Russian history and culture. One of the most popular types of Russian folk dancing is known as khorovod. People dance in a circle while holding hands in this style of dance. Russian folk dances are performed by Russians at festivals, markets, as well as in the theater. If you have the opportunity to visit Russia, definitely it's recommended that you attend a Russian folk dance performance to learn more about Russian culture as well as Russian traditions. This next fact probably doesn't come as a surprise, but Russia is the largest country in the world. Yeah, if we take a look at the land mass of Russia, it is the largest country. Russia has a total area of 17,098,242 square kilometers, which is 6,601,665 square miles. And it has a land area of 16,376,870 square kilometers, which is 6,323,142 square miles. That equates to 11% of the total land mass on the planet. This is great news for travelers though, because it means that there is plenty to see and plenty to do in Russia. Another interesting fact is that Russians do not consider smiling to be a friendly gesture. Not all, but many Russians actually are trained not to smile while growing up because what they perceive about a smile is the opposite of the typical perception of what a smile signifies in other countries. While pretty much the rest of the world thinks that smiling is a good habit and it's a way to spread happiness, well, in many cases, Russians view smiling as a sign of weakness. Russians smile when they see people that they know and care about, but not when they see strangers, as many other cultures do. So definitely be cautious when you visit Russia, because if you're smiling at a Russian, definitely don't be surprised if a smile isn't returned. Next up at fact number 5, we all know this game Tetris, right? Well, many people, even game lovers, are unaware that the game Tetris was created in Russia. Alexei Pajitnov, he created the first version of Tetris for the Electronica 60 computer back in the year 1984. Now, the game quickly gained popularity and spread throughout Russia. By the year 1987, the game had been released in Europe and in North America, and it had quickly become one of the world's most popular computer games. I still think even today, it's very popular. For fact number 4, Russia also has very busy metros. While in Russia, you do not have to worry about local commutes, especially in Moscow. Moscow's metro station is the world's 4th busiest metro station. Only Seoul, Shanghai, and Tokyo have busier metro stations. In Russia, more than 2 billion people ride the metro each year, and one of the best things about Russia's busy metro is that it makes getting around easier for both locals as well as tourists. There are trains to almost anywhere that you could possibly want to go. Moving on to fact number 3, let's take a look at superstitions. Yeah, this is another very interesting and fascinating fact about Russia, is that in general, well, there's a lot of different superstitions and traditions. One of the most common customs is to give flowers only in odd numbers. Many Russians believe that, well, if they're given an even number of flowers, they will take it personally. And in addition to not giving out an even number of flowers, Russians believe that clothing should not be worn inside out. Russians also believe that you will be beaten if you wear your clothes inside out. So if you travel to Russia, keep these superstitions in mind. Also, did you know that Russia has 12 active volcanoes? This is definitely another surprising fact. Of those volcanoes, Kamchatka is one of the most commonly visited due to its accessible location. If you are someone that loves nature and beautiful landscapes, well, you should visit Kamchatka. This active volcano actually has over 1,000 different species of plants, and it's also home to brown bears as well as sheep and wolves. You can choose to visit Kamchatka on your own or go on a guided tour. And if you are unfamiliar with the Russian language, an organized tour is definitely the easiest option for you. Ending this episode off, fact number 1, we have a lot of literature that's found in Russia. If you enjoy literature, you are probably aware that Russia is home to some of the best and most renowned writers. Alexander Pushkin, Alexander Solzhenitsyn, as well as Ivan Turgenev, and also Vladimir Nabokov are among the great Russian authors. Many famous literary writers have museums dedicated to them in Russia, which you can definitely go and visit, and the majority of them can be found in Moscow or St. Petersburg, Russia. Whether you are a fan of their work or unfamiliar with them, definitely visiting their museums will teach you something new about them as well as Russian literature on a whole. Start this episode with Shamil Alayutdinov. Shamil is a theologian, imam, and a mufti, and he was born in the year 1974 in Moscow, present-day Russia. He attended Egypt's renowned Al-Azhar University and has served as the imam of Moscow's Memorial Mosque since the year 1998. He is the president of the Ulema Council of the Spiritual Directorate of Muslims of the Russian Federation. Among Russian-speaking Muslims, Shamil Alayutdinov is regarded as one of the most influential Islamic scholars. He has written several books on Islam, and he is frequently interviewed by Russian and foreign media on various topics concerning Islam as well as the rest of the Muslim world. Number 9 leads us to Marat Khusnulin. Marat Khusnulin is a deputy prime minister of Russia, and he was born in the city of Kazan in 1966. He has a bachelor's degree in economics and a master's degree in professional management. He served as a Minister of Construction, Architecture, Housing and Public Works in Russia from the years 2001 up until the year 2010. In 2010, he was appointed Deputy Mayor of Construction and Urban Development in Moscow, which is a position that he held up until the year 2020. During this time, he really helped the modernization of Moscow, and he was also appointed Deputy Prime Minister for Construction and Regional Development in Russia in January of 2020. From there, let's look at Suleiman Kerimov. He is a billionaire businessman. He's also a social worker and a politician, and he served in the Soviet Army and graduated from Dagestan State University with a bachelor's degree in financial accounting and economics. So this guy, of course, knows his money. Suleiman Kerimov is a shareholder in the Russian bank Fedprom Bank, and the oil company of Nafta Moscow, as well as the Russian state-owned gas company Gazprom. And also, he is a shareholder in the bank Saber Bank. Back in the year 2006, he had formed a foundation to run charitable activities, and he also donated $100 million to build the largest mosque in Europe. And he's also one of the world's richest people. He has an estimated net worth of over $21.3 billion. Talgat Tazuddin comes next. He is the main religious leader and the chief mufti of Russia. From 1992 up until 2015, he had been the head of the Central Spiritual Directorate of Muslims, which is the main religious organization of Russian Muslims. He also represents Russian Muslims in UNESCO, as well as the OIC and the European League of Muslims and other organizations. Talgat Tazuddin, he was a staunch supporter, and perhaps still is, of the intervention of expanding Russia's global influence. Like, he even told the Russian president, and I quote, "What we have done in Crimea, we should probably do in Syria and Israel. Let Russia extend to Mecca." Number 6 leads us to Alisher Usmanov. He's also a billionaire businessman, and back in the 1990s, he rose to prominence as a major businessman in Russia with the opportunity to implement a free market economy. He has a net worth that is estimated to be $19.5 billion as of this year, 2022. And Alisher Usmanov is the founder of the global company USM Holdings and the owner of the Russian telecom company Megaphone, as well as the internet company Mail.ru and the newspaper Kommersant. He is also involved in several sports organizations and is the current president of the International Fencing Federation. From there, let's look at Ramzan Kadyrov coming in at number 5. This man is a politician and a parliamentary official. Ramzan Kadyrov is currently the Chechen president and also a major general in the Russian National Guard. Ramzan Kadyrov has been instrumental in rebuilding the war-torn Chechnya. He has implemented some forms of Islamic law in Chechnya, but he's also a very vocal opponent of Chechen separatists. Number 4 leads us to Rustam Minyanov. He was Tajikstan's prime minister from the year 1996 to 2010 and its head of state in 2010. Tajikistan is one of Russia's richest regions, so the republic's head of state holds more power than those of Russia's other administrative regions. Rustam Minyanov has made significant contributions to Tajikistan's economic and technological development. Tajikistan has become one of Russia's leading technological centers under his leadership. In at the number 3 spot, we have Khabib Nurmagomedov. Of course, I couldn't make a list of influential and powerful Russians without mentioning him. Khabib Nurmagomedov is a mixed martial artist, and he is considered one of the best martial artists of all time. He was UFC's lightweight champion and won all of his 29 fights. Now, he retired from MMA back in the year 2021, and yet he was still undefeated. Khabib is the first Muslim to win a UFC title, and he is the most followed Russian on Instagram. And his followers total 33.5 million followers at the time of recording this video. He is regarded as one of the most well-known Muslim athletes in the entire world, and Khabib Nurmagomedov is a practicing Muslim, and he has been very vocal about his Islamic beliefs. At number 2, we have Mintemir Shaimiev. Mintemir Shaimiev was the president of Tajikistan, and he was a member of the Tatar Communist Party and held multiple positions. Back in the year 1991, he was elected the president of Tajikistan and voted in favor of Tajikistan's independence during his reign in a referendum. With Mayor of Moscow, Yuri Luzkov, he formed the United Russian Party, which is now the ruling party of Russia. In the year 2010, he resigned as head of state, but remained with the government as an advisor. Ending this episode at number 1, we have Ravil Gaineddin. He is a theologian, an imam, as well as a mufti. And since the year 1996, he has been the Grand Mufti of Russia, and currently he is the spiritual admin. Raul Gainetdin is regarded as the most powerful Russian Muslim. He has close ties to the Kremlin and is well known among Russian Muslims. He is a big supporter of peace between Christians and Muslims.
Now, when I told you that I love Russian girls, let's talk about the girls, because there's one interesting thing about Russia, and that is women outnumber men. As a matter of fact, they say that there are about 9 million more women to men in the entire country. Studies have shown that to 100 women, there is approximately 86.8 men. And the reason for this is partly due to the Second World War. But it's not just war that makes men's population low, it's also alcohol. Alcohol is predominantly a major problem with deaths with young men in the country. And although 52% of Russian women view alcohol as a major problem, a 2005 study showed that 37% of males would die before the age of 55 due to alcohol-related deaths. Now let's get off the bad topics and move on to some of the more positive things about Russia. One thing for sure is that Russia has a great population of 146 million people, with over 3/4 of its population living in cities such as Moscow and the beautiful St. Petersburg and so on. And some people might think that with Russia's size, it is the country with the smallest population density. But actually, if you spread everyone out, they do manage to have 21 people per square mile, compared to Greenland, which is like nothing. 0. Now, when we talk about density, let's be real, Russia is huge. As I stated earlier, it is the largest country in the entire world, with a landmass of over 17,075,200 square kilometers, which makes up almost the landmass of Canada and the United States combined. But with all this land, it has a lot of forest, and because of that, Russia is sometimes called the lungs of Europe. And therefore, the Russian forests are second to the Amazon rainforest when it comes to their trees consuming carbon dioxide. Also interesting thing about the land is it has a lot of UNESCO World Heritage Sites. The country has over 26 of them, but one of the most amazing sites is the volcanoes of Kamchatka, which is a collection of 160 volcanoes with 29 of them being extremely active. And as for the ones that are alive, they are considered the largest active volcanoes in the northern hemisphere, and it is really quite an amazing spectacle. The scientists of Russia have done some amazing accomplishments, but one thing that Russian scientists have done that they can claim 100% theirs is they have the oldest plant ever to be regenerated from the seeds from over 32,000 years ago. This is the Silene stentophyllol, and although it was frozen in permafrost for such a long time, scientists managed to bring this plant back to life from its fruit tissues. Now here on FTD Facts, we also like to talk about some of the imports and exports of these countries. And Russia, for example, has over $449 billion in exports and imports $295 billion in goods, with the biggest export being crude petroleum making 35% and refined petroleum making 20%. And because of those numbers, they are the second biggest exporter of oil in the entire world. But their biggest imports are cars, making up 5.3%. In Russia, you will also notice that it has beautiful landmarks. We're not talking just about its architecture and buildings, we're also talking about its statues. But one of the most famous is the statue of the worker and the Kolkai woman, done by Vera Mokina. It is a stainless steel statue that is 80 feet high. And although it is now located in Moscow, it was first introduced at the World's Fair in 1937. And the statue alone was a significant visual of the war against Nazism during the Second World War, as the statue was placed opposite of the German Nazi flag to show their rivalry. Now, to talk about accomplishments within this country, we cannot forget about the Russian space program. But what makes the space program groundbreaking is it was the first program to send a man into space and to even orbit the Earth. That cosmonaut was Yuri Gagarin, and he launched from Earth in his Vostok space capsule on April 12, 1961. And because of that crowning achievement, the Russian space program has become one of the most influential space programs in the world, collaborating with scientists all over the globe. Now, with a big country and territory comes a big army. Russia's army comes in 5th over the world with over 1 million people in active service and 2 million people in reserve service as of 2017. And that army costs around $69 billion a year. And when it comes to military, we unfortunately have to talk about its nuclear arsenal. Maybe not one of the most proud things for a country to have, but here on FTD Facts, we talk about the good and the bad. But in 1988, it was reported that Russia at one point had over 45,000 warheads, with over 715 detonations. But however, since then, there's been major steps in decommissioning these deadly warheads and nuclear vessels. But currently, right now, it is estimated that Russia has over 7,000 nuclear warheads. But moving back over to achievements of Russia, the country has many of them. It's a country of great intelligence due to its over 600 universities. And because of its great education, Russia has earned 27 Nobel laureates, spreading across literature, chemistry, physics, and above all, peace.
You may want to be careful what you say about anybody in the government. So Russia's new criminal code actually expands the definition of treason. And now if you're a critic of the government, that can actually turn you into a traitor. So be careful what you say about the government. Also, as of July of 2014, there's a law that came into effect that bans the use of profanity in theaters and films and in other media. And like bloggers in Russia, they're actually forbidden to use any sort of profanity at all. And yeah, if you're found guilty, you face paying some fines. Now, did you know that it is illegal to drive a dirty car in the city of Chelyabinsk? So guys, hear this. Driving a dirty car can get you a fine of upwards to 2,000 rubles. That's about $62 US. There's also another rule in Russia where the patronym can only be placed immediately after the given name of somebody. So let's just say, for example, if your name was Ivan, Ivanov, Ivanovich, that would be completely unacceptable. And if you're not familiar with grammar, and just like me, I had to just Google it before I filmed this video, a patronym or a patronymic is actually the component of a personal name based on the given name of a person's father or other female ancestors. And for all you ladies out there that love lingerie, well, check this. The sale and import and production of lace panties is completely prohibited. So allegedly, lace underwear for women does not comply with the technical requirements that were adopted in Russia. Now, probably one of the most controversial laws in this episode is the anti-gay law. Now, this law prevents the distribution of non-traditional sexual relationships. And now it's said that Russia passed this law in order to keep the idea of non-traditional sexual relationships away from minors. Now, this law makes it illegal to equate straight and gay relationships, as well as distribute any sort of material that is on gay rights. So for all you bloggers out there that get more than 3,000 daily visitors and want to remain anonymous because of maybe the content that you're posting, well, guess what? You're not allowed to do that in Russia. Regulations that passed in 2014 actually require blogs that have over 3,000 daily visitors to actually register as a media outlet and give personal data and information. So if you want to remain anonymous, just make sure that your daily visitors don't exceed that number. Now here's an interesting one. President Obama, the former US president, he's actually banned from entering Chechnya. So Chechnya is a small Russian republic, and the former US President Barack Obama is actually really banned from entering the country. The president of Chechnya posted on Instagram that the ban of President Obama was in response to how the US acted in countries like Iraq and Syria. This one's kind of funny, but it comes at no surprise. So all memes that poke fun at political figures, well, of course, Vladimir Putin is definitely banned and outlawed in Russia. Yeah, Putin wasn't happy when he saw that clown face meme of himself. No, that didn't go too well. And the final strange, surprising, and controversial law that I want to share about Russia is that yoga has been banned in several parts. Why? Well, apparently officials feel that yoga actually promotes the spread of new religions and cults, and they want to really limit the types of religious cults and movements that pop up in Russia.